All right, we got through the CRP and CREP. WIP, the Wildlife Habitat Incentives Program, is probably the main program in the Farm Bill that was specifically designed for wildlife habitat purposes. It doesn't provide the types of rental payments that you get in CRP or CREP. So really all it does is it pays for the development and management costs of installing and maintaining habitat. On the flip side, one of the nice things about it is that your contract is very short. Whereas with CRP, there's a lot of restrictions, and the contract's 10 to 15 years. With this program, you essentially get paid to install it, to do it, and then 1 year after you finish your last practice, the contract is over, and you can do whatever you want with it at that point. So it gives you more flexibility. In some cases, if you have land that is not eligible for CRP or CREP, then this is another way to go to be able to do things. And unlike CRP and CREP, this is also eligible on forested land. CRP is only eligible on cropland and marginal pasture land.
One
Yes.
question. What would be a practice in the forest land?
I'm gonna go through some of them right now.
Oh, okay.
So next slide, I'll get to some of that. These are cover establishment practices within WIP, just to give you an idea. So we got warm season grass establishment with some wildflowers in the mix. It's about $370 per acre we'll pay for that. If you want to do more of a wildflower meadow where there's a lot more wildflowers and a lot less grasses in the mix, which may be something you'd want to do, we have a higher payment rate because wildflowers cost more. Then if you want to do tree plantings, do a corridor or a hedgerow of hardwoods and or shrubs, we have a rate of $525 per acre. And then and we have two payment rates for that, depending on whether or not you need to use tree shelters to protect the hardwoods and the shrubs or not. Tree shelters can be expensive, so that's why big difference in cost. Some people swear by them, other people don't really like them, but it seems like a lot of the foresters do like to use them. And they will protect them from your trees from the deer browse that can occur. So there are some of the cover establishment practices. And then we have some of the more like management-oriented practices. This first one up here, cut back field border, that's the one that I think Mac really wanted me to explain. So I think everybody knows what field borders are along the edge of the field. Well, there's a couple ways to make a field border. One is you could take your crop field that you have there and just create a new field border by taking that area out of production, or you can selectively cut the trees in the edge of the woods, cut them back so that you can allow your shrubs to grow in there. And you don't have to take all the trees out, but take some of the trees out. And that's a practice I think it used to be used a lot more than it is today. It does take a lot of work to do a cut back field border. I mean, it's really easier just to plant an area or to let it naturally regenerate than it is to actually go in there and selectively harvest trees out. But we do pay $375 per acre to do that kind of stuff, and it does make great, it's a great way of getting a soft edge. And you already have the species there, the shrub species and tree species that you want. So. Herbicide treatment. We have a couple different types of herbicide treatment. Hand or aerial spraying, $90 an acre. So I know some for woodcock habitat, people want to spray to keep the shrubs or keep the trees sort of low and scrubby, set them back every so many years. That's one thing you could use it for. We also use it for invasive species control. If you got an invasive species, you can pay for that kind of thing too. Typical one would be Phragmites control. Hack and square is something we use when you have trees and you need to go in there and actually kill older trees. So essentially it's girdling the tree and then spraying it with an herbicide so the tree dies. Case where you might want to do that is if you got oaks, let's say, and a bunch of sweet gum, and you want to thin the sweet gum out, you might do hack and square on the sweet gum so that your oaks can take off. As you can see, it's a pretty labor-intensive process, so it's a pretty high rate there. Herbicide treatment machine, just using, if you got some kind of machine to do it, it usually costs less than having, manually going out there and spraying, so it's a lower rate. Mechanical brush control, that would be using like a GeoBoy. So like they have like bobcats, or sometimes they got even dozers that have like a front end on it with a big grinding head on it. And it's a good way to create some early successional habitat, grind down some fairly young trees. I think they use them on power line rights-of-ways a lot when they get too big and thick. Prescribed burns, $27 per acre. It's not much of a payment, but it could cover some of the costs, especially if you can get some of the wildlife management people to come out and help you with your burns. And then native wildflower overseeding to try to get some like partridge pea and other native forbs into an area. Like I said, that could be fairly expensive to buy the seed, so we have some funding available for that also. And the thing about the wildflowers is you're getting a lot of diversity in the mix when you do that. We hope that you don't have to go out every year. We don't want you to go out every year and overseed. What we hope that happens is once you get them in there, they'll flower, go to seed, and then when you disturb that area, they'll come back again. All right, Wetlands Reserve Program. And this one is a pretty big program, especially over here on the shore. The main objective is to restore wetlands for this program. But similar to with the wetland practices in CREP, for every acre of wetland that we restore, we can also enroll up to an acre of other lands, which could be upland habitat. And this program has pretty good payment. It's a pretty broad range, somewhere between $2,120 to over $8,000 per acre. Now, there's different rates depending on whether you have cropland or woodland, and depending on what county you're in. On the back of the handout for WRP, you'll see the rates depending on what county you're located in and what kind of land type it is. Note, that is the rate for a permanent easement. That means forever easement. So you use this on land that you're willing to say, this is going to be wildlife habitat forever. And it's also wildlife habitat that has sort of specific requirements. So in woodland, Nevin was talking about the FIDs. Typically, that's what we want, is FIDs habitat. If you enroll some land that's cropland or pasture, up to 30% of the total enrolled land can be managed in early successional habitat, both like shallow water, like emergent wetlands, and also like upland grassland and shrub habitat. So you do have those options built into it, which can make it very desirable for some people. All right, Nevin talked about planning. And one thing you should always do when you're thinking about this stuff is try to do some planning. Go to your soil conservation district office. Tell them you want to plan on your farm or your property and that you're interested in wildlife habitat. And tell them what kind of wildlife habitat. We have planners in every office who are there to help you work with this, with your property and come up with a plan based on your objectives for the property. This is just a little example that I threw together. Obviously, you get much more complicated than that. But though they will give you some nice maps, if nothing else. How do you get started? Like I said, contact your local soil conservation district office. Request a conservation plan on your farm or property. CREP and CRP is continuous enrollment. You can walk in the office anytime and sign up for those programs. WIP and WRP are ongoing sign-ups from now through April 15th, and that's usually about the time every year that we have them available. And the only other thing was, Nevin had talked about, since he was talking about forestry, we do have pure forestry management practices available also through our EQIP program, Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So if you are interested in some forestry practices, you can also ask about that at your local soil conservation district office. That's it.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.